Hello friends, welcome to the end of year book tag. Now I know that technically it's not the end of the year anymore, but with all the videos that I wanted to put out at the end of the year, I didn't have time to make this one and put it out in December. So we're just gonna do it now. Now, if you don't know what an end of year book tag is, this is a list of questions that people answer about the books that they read in the past year. And I think I have like 12 questions or so. So we're just gonna jump right in and start answering them. The first question is, what was your worst or most disappointing read of 2024? And that one was very easy. In fact, I had a couple books that were such disappointments to me that I had to narrow it down. But the two that I would say are my biggest disappointments of the year, see, they're over here. A Court of Silver Flames by Sarah J. Maas. I was not a big fan of this book at all. In fact, I really disliked it. And it almost ruined the ACOTAR series for me because this is the last thing I read and it left a really bad taste in my mouth. I would not recommend that anyone read this book ever. In fact, both of these books are books that I'm like, no one should read these. Now, the second book I'm sure you guys could also guess, and that is Wicked by Gregory Maguire. I could rant about how much I did not like this book and how terrible it was forever. In fact, when I went to go see Wicked with my family, I had to stop myself from ranting afterwards about how terrible the book was. But I'm not going to get into that now, I promise. Just know that this is not worth the read. This was very disappointing and, in my opinion, not very well written at all. See the play, watch the movie, forget the book even exists. The next question is, what was the most overhyped book that you read this year? And again, I had multiple answers for this and I had to narrow it down for myself, but I got it down to 3, and that kind of seems like a lot. One of these books I really didn't like, and the other 2 I thought were fine, but I just didn't love, and there were some people that did love them. I was just kind of had higher expectations for them. So this is the first book that I didn't like at all, and that is Things We Never Got Over by Lucy Score. I will never read a Lucy Score book ever again. I don't like her writing, I don't like her characters, and I don't like how spicy her books are, and that they're based 100% on physical attraction and not on any sort of emotional connection at all. So this was such a hyped up book. I gave it 1 point something stars. It was not for me and it was way overhyped. Now the next book I don't own physically, but it's Bear Town by Frederick Bachman. This is one of those books that people have been absolutely raving about forever. And while I can agree with them that this book is very well written, now the fact that I enjoy his writing, I do not necessarily enjoy his storytelling as much as I can appreciate his writing. So I definitely thought it was overhyped. I gave it 3.5 stars. Frederick Bachman is definitely one of those writers where I would recommend you give him a try and see if he's for you, but I don't necessarily think that he's going to ever be one of my favorite authors. And so for that reason, I think that his books were a little bit overhyped. And then the last book is kind of in that same category, and that is Red Rising by Pierce Brown. This book has an absolute massive fan following. People adore this series, and I just thought it was fine, and I thought parts of it were actually kind of a little bit annoying. Now, I gave this book 3.75 stars, so I still enjoyed it, and I'm still going to continue on with the rest of the series for multiple reasons, but I still think it was overhyped. I think I went into it with a much higher expectation of how much I was going to connect with the story and the characters than I actually did. For me, it just didn't live up to the hype. Now, for other people that I know, it most definitely has lived up to the hype. It's hyped for a reason in their mind. For me, it just did not live up to the hype. Question 3 is, what book surprised you? And I kind of took this question as, what book was surprisingly good this year? And so my answer for that is definitely Six Scorched Roses. This is a novella in the Crowns of Nexia series, and I love that novella so much. I think it was so well done. I absolutely love it. I like it more than Serpent and the Wings of Night or Ashes and Starker's King. I would reread that novella all the time if I owned it physically, and I just absolutely love it. And I think part of that was the length. I definitely was left wanting more. And then the second one, this is not going to come as a surprise to any of you, but Fourth Wing was definitely a book that surprised me in the best way possible this year. Honestly, at the beginning of this year, Fourth Wing was on that list of books that I knew existed, and I knew that people really loved it, but I didn't think I was ever going to read it. I was just so not interested in this book at all. I was like, you know what? I don't want to read it at all. I don't think I ever will read it. I have zero interest. I'm never going to pay for this book, whatever. And then this funny little thing happened where they put it on Kindle Unlimited, and my I don't think I'm ever going to read this book turned into a hey, why not? I can read it for free. Oh my gosh, am I so glad that I did, because this was one of the most pleasant surprises of 2024. Now, I don't think that these are like my favorite characters or my favorite world, but for some reason, all the different parts combined make one of the best series for me in 2024. I don't think that this series is for everyone, but I absolutely loved it. It was such a pleasant surprise to love this book as much as I did. The next question is, what is your favorite book couple? Now, I went back and forth on this one a little bit. I originally wanted to do, what's his name? Justin, yeah. Originally, my answer was going to be Justin and Emma from Just for the Summer by Abby Jimenez. But then I remembered that I recently read this other book and how much I absolutely love both of these characters and how much I just thoroughly enjoyed their dynamic and their story. And that was Funny Story by Emily Henry. Miles and Daphne are by far my favorite couple for multiple reasons. One, I love both of their personalities and their dynamic. It's so cute and they're both so kind and thoughtful to other people. And so it's really fun to see people that are not only invested in the relationship between each other, but also in the relationships around them. And both of these people had a healing arc and they had a growth arc, and I really enjoyed that as well. Emily Henry was so good at giving them very distinct, lovable personalities. And I personally really related to Daphne. We have very similar personalities, although our life circumstances are not necessarily super similar. So definitely Miles and Daphne from Funny Story for favorite book couple. The next question is, what is your favorite main character from a book you read this year? And again, of course, I have multiple. You know that I can't just choose one. I have 3 altogether, but 2 of them are from the same book. And the 2 that are from the same book are Rocky and Ryland from Project Hail Mary by Andy Weir. I love this book so much, and I love Rocky and Ryland so much. Originally, I was just going to say Rocky, but Ryland makes me laugh so much. The way that Andy wrote him, he's just so funny and lovable, and I absolutely love him. Everything about them, in my mind, was wonderful and lovable. I highly recommend Project Hail Mary. I love those characters so much. And then my other favorite character was Katniss Everdeen from The Hunger Games by Suzanne Collins. Now, Katniss is my favorite character. I love her as a person. She went through so much heartache, and like I want the best for Katniss like so bad. And she had to go through so many hard things in her life. Whenever anything happened to her, I was also like deeply wounded when she was wounded. So my care and my love for her was just so deep. And I think that's just a really good comment on like how well Suzanne Collins can write characters that you love. So yeah, Katniss Everdeen for sure. I love her so much. Question number 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Who was your new favorite author this year? And I spent 2024 and I'm planning on spending 2025 really branching out with my authors. And so for that reason, I had like a really long list of a lot of authors who it was my first time reading one of their books. I almost said Andy Weir again, but since I've only read one of his books, I felt like I probably couldn't say that. And then I also said Emily Henry, but again, I had only read one of her books. So I felt like I couldn't be justified in saying that. So that left me with someone else who I absolutely love, and I've read almost her entire back catalog this year, and that is Abby Jimenez. And this is the book that started the obsession, Yours Truly. I highly recommend this book to anyone who likes romance at all, or someone who's questioning if they like romance, and also Just for the Summer. Both of these are beautiful and perfect. Series-wise, it goes Part of Your World, which I have not read yet, which is funny because it's the first one, and then Yours Truly, and then Just for the Summer. Anyway, I just love her writing, in all honesty. She has really good humor and she makes really good in-depth characters, and they have real life problems that they have to work through, and they all have growth arcs and usually some sort of healing arc as well. There's relatively little spice in her books, which means that the characters are having a very deep emotional connection and you're rooting for them. You can tell that they genuinely love each other and they're not just in lust instead of in love. The next question is, what is the longest book that you read this year? Sherlock Holmes is the longest book that I read this year. It was 1067 pages or something like that. Yeah, right at there. This was a chunky book. It took me a month and a half to read it, and I have no regrets. I think that it was amazing. If you are going to start on this book, then I would recommend that you really love Sherlock, and it's kind of satisfying to say that you read a book that was over 1,000 pages. What is the shortest book you read this year? It is Animal Farm by George Orwell. It was only like 140 pages. I read it in an afternoon. I liked it. It was fine. Definitely not one of my favorite classics that I've ever read. Because it was so short, it made it manageable, and there was pretty much no fluff. It was just straight to the point. That was the shortest book I read this year. Question 9 is, what books do you wish you had gotten to this year? Narrowing down this list was so hard because I have so many books on my physical TBR that I wish that I had gotten to, and also lots on my Kindle Unlimited TBR that I wish that I had gotten to. But there's 3 in particular that I was for sure dead set on reading this year that I just did not have time for. These 3 right here. Starting with Lessons in Chemistry. I bought this book in February or March, and I thought that I was going to pick it up and read it immediately. For some reason, I just never got to it. Either I wasn't in the mood for it by the time I finished another book, or I forgot about it because it's not on my main bookshelf, or I was filming videos and it just didn't fit into the theme of the videos. So I just never got to it. And so for that reason, I put it on my 25 books to read in 2025, but that's the first one. And then the second one was The Seven Husbands of Evelyn Hugo by Taylor Jenkins Reid. I definitely thought I was going to get to this one this year too, because I have been absolutely dying to read one of Taylor Jenkins Reid's books, and I've heard this is a great one to start with. I bought this one, and again, thought that I was going to read it immediately. And lastly is Better Than the Movies by Lynn Painter. This was one of the books on my 24 books to read in 2024 list. I was planning on this being my first contemporary romance that I had read in a very long time, because I had heard such amazing things about it, and I wanted to give myself a fighting shot at really enjoying contemporary romance. But that did not happen, and instead the first contemporary romance that I read was Things We Never Got Over, which was a mistake. Lynn Painter is still one of the authors that I want to try one of her contemporary romances and see if I like it or not. This one I'm going to read in 2025. In fact, all 3 of these I'm really determined to get to in 2025. The next question is, what is a book that you cannot stop thinking about? And as is the pattern with this entire video, I had to choose more than one, because it's true for more than one book, and I could not decide between the 3 of them. So I just chose all 3 of them. My video, my rules. So the first one we've already talked about because I love it so much, and that is Funny Story by Emily Henry. Again, I highly recommend this book, and I'm really hoping that the rest of her books I love as much. Funny Story, because if that's the case, then I am excited for a new favorite author. And I know that I read this one fairly recently, but I cannot stop thinking about the situations that happen in this book and the relationships in this book, just like the situation in general. I mean, the premise of this book is that her fiance goes to his bachelor party and comes back from the bachelor party and tells her that he's actually in love with his childhood best friend, and so she has a week to get out of his house. And so basically her only option is to move in with Miles, who is the childhood best friend's now ex-boyfriend. And so they kind of trauma bond a little bit, and then they eventually decide that they want to try to make their exes jealous by pretending to date, and so there's fake dating in it too, and it's just a good time. And I'm one that I love fake dating. It's one of my favorite tropes in romances because I think that it's just ridiculous and fun. But the way that this fake dating worked was very different than any other fake dating that I've seen, and I loved it. I ate it up. They only ran into their exes like a couple times, and so they only had to like really fake date a couple times, but the rest of it was just them building their relationship as roommates and as friends, and then eventually they end up falling in love with one another. I cannot stop thinking about this one for sure. And then the next one is also not going to be a surprise to you guys, but it is Iron Flame by Rebecca Yarros. I love this series. I love this book. I can't stop thinking about the whole series, all the situations that happen, some of the tragedies that happen, which tragedies happen all the time in this book because they're dealing with life and death situations. The entire series. I love this series. But the reason why why I chose Iron Flame and not Fourth Wing is because I think about the ending of this book all the time and what's going to happen because there's no resolution in my mind yet. So when Onyx Storm comes out, it may take Iron Flame's place. For now, this is the one that has been on my mind a lot lately. And then the last one is actually the one that I've been thinking about the most, and it's a nonfiction book, and that is Praying Like Monks, Living Like Fools by Tyler Staton. I highly recommend this book. I sincerely love this book. Like, I'm planning on going chapter by chapter and implementing the prayer routines that he talks about in every single chapter in my life, like very slowly, and hopefully by the end of the year I'll get through all like 9 or 10 chapters. So I cannot stop thinking about this book and the concepts of it and what it would mean to apply some of these principles. I love it. I love it. I love it. What are some of your favorite quotes from the year? Now, I know that I'm going to be missing some quotes for sure. There's no way that off the top of my head I thought of every single quote that I loved and that really impacted me. Let's just say like 90% of Praying Like Monks, Living Like Fools. I mean, do you see how many tabs I have in here? Like, it is insane how many tabs. It's like pretty much every single page. I'm not going to read any of them for you because I feel like you kind of need the rest of the structure of the book for the quotes to be really impactful. Pretty much this whole book is an entire quote that I love. Funny enough, Iron Flame also has some of my favorite quotes. I'm going to read maybe 1 or 2 of them. I'm not going to read any of the ones that have spoilers or that you wouldn't be able to understand out of context, or I would have to read like a whole paragraph in order for you to gain context. So there's this one. It says, because love at its root is hope. Hope for tomorrow. Hope for what could be. Hope that someone that you've entrusted with everything will cradle it and protect it. And hope that's harder to kill than a dragon. What you want to be doesn't change what you are without work. You raged today because you were angry. You got jealous because you were jealous. Grappled with inferiority because for some reason I can't understand you feel inferior. Own your feelings like you did last year and be honest with me. The only weapons that blank, no spoilers, can wield are the ones that you hand her. If you want to keep control of your emotions, then you have to keep control of them in the first place. If you want it to change, then you have to figure it out, just like you did before. You're the only one who can. So those were a few of the quotes that I really loved from this book. They kind of don't hit as hard when they're taken out of context, but the fact that she can put little quotes like that apply to the character, but if you really think about it, can apply to your own life if you let them, in a book that is about dragons is absolutely insane. And then also there's a couple quotes from the Ministry of Time. Now, this was not one of my top books of the year, but it does have a few quotes that I thought were really good, specifically the one on the very last page of the book. I know how much you've longed for your future to lean down, cup your face, and whisper, don't worry, it gets better. But the truth is, it won't get better if you keep making the same mistakes. It can get better, but you must allow yourself to imagine a world in which you are better. Forgiveness, which takes you back to the person that you were and lets you reset them. Hope, which exists in a future in which you are new. Forgiveness and hope are miracles. They let you change your life. They are time travel. So good. I love that quote. That quote made the book a whole step up better for me than it was before. The power of just 1 or 2 good quotes in a book is amazing. I'm just going to keep this book in my hand for a minute because the next question is, which book that you read this year had the most unique premise? And this one definitely has the most unique premise, I think. I mean, just the fact of like time travel and going back and taking someone, having someone who has to like live with them and help them adjust to living in modern day society is so intriguing and so cool to me. And kind of on a piggyback from that is also The Invisible Life of Addie LaRue by V.E. Schwab. Now, I don't know if you notice a theme that I like, maybe the theme of time and what it means to be like outside of maybe your own era. May or may not be a theme that I really think it's cool because both of these books is the ones that immediately came to mind. Similarly, this book is about someone who is immortal and everyone forgets her as soon as they see her because of a deal that she made. And it takes place over like 300 years. So you get to see someone who lived in the 1700s living in modern day New York City. That's kind of a cool, unique premise as well. And just like the fact that everyone forgets her and then all of a sudden there's one person that doesn't. I love that concept so much. And then the last question is, what are some of your reading goals for 2025? Now, this first goal that I have 2 that I want to talk to you guys about, but the first goal that I have is a little bit ambitious. I'm hoping that I can do it. Next year, I want to try to read 100 books. Now, this year I read 80, so I think reading 20 more than I did this year is definitely a possibility, but it's going to be a goal that's going to be really easy to get behind on and a book that I'm going to have to like make sure that I stay on top of in order to do it. I probably won't ever want to read 100 books in a year ever again. I'll probably like lower my goal back down to something a little bit more reasonable for me. But for 1 year, I just want to like see if I can do it. And then the last goal that I have for 2025 is I want to do the alphabet challenge. Now, you guys will be learning more about this very soon, but I essentially want to read one book that starts with every single letter. So my plan is to make it a series on this channel and to go through it with you guys every single month, doing 2 to 3 letters a month. So by the end of the year, or close to the end of the year, I will have read 26 books for sure, and a book from every single letter of the alphabet, which I think is a really cool premise too. So those are my 2 big book goals for this year. I'm really excited about both of them, honestly. I'm happy that you guys are going to be here with me to go on the ride. So that is all that I have for you guys today. Those are all the questions. I hope that you guys enjoyed this video. Let me know in the comments below what your reading goals are for 2025 if you have any, and pick your favorite question from this vlog and answer it down below as well. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I will see you guys next time.